Wow, this was very moving video that we had the opportunity to watch. And I think we are all grateful to Chief Franklin that he's here with us and that he's actually sharing his experiences with us and that we have him as a very strong figure who actually represents how we can forgive and how we can actually, move on with the people and how we can basically, work in unity and diversity. And we are, again, very grateful to have Chief Franklin with us. But now it's actually time to hand over to another panel. And next panel will be on nourishing the human in humanitarianism with the recipients of the Multi-Religious Humanitarianism Fund. So our moderator will be Ms. Eda Molla-Hussein, and keynote will be delivered by Her Excellency Ms. Ursula Müller, and the speakers include Ms. Laura Vargas, which we have seen in our studio yesterday, Ms. Jacqueline Malari from the Philippines, Shamsa Abubakar Fadel from Kenya, and Dr. Genti Kruya from Albania. So enjoy your second last session.
Thank you. Thank you very much for your kind introduction, Emina. Greetings, everyone. I hope you had a good sleep, and we just approached to the end and the last day of this wonderful conference. We had covered many important subjects since Monday, and today we are going to be concluding with humanitarianism, which is another important aspect when we are tackling environmental issues. So I would like to just make a statement that Honorary Imam Saeed Razavi, Director General and Chief Imam, Scottish Ahlul Bayt Society and International Trustee of Religions for Peace, and also member of Council of Multi-Religious Leaders, couldn't be with us today. We are sending our good wishes and blessings and wishing him a good recovery. I will try to complete his moderating session today. I hope we have a good one. And I would like to welcome all of you, also our virtual attendees. Thank you very much, my guests, joining me today. And I would like to start our conversation now. Okay, so first on my list, I have a introductory video message from our keynote speaker, Her Excellency Mrs. Ursula Müller. She is former Assistant Secretary General for Humanitarian Affairs and Deputy Emergency Relief Coordinator in the United Nations Office for the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs. So I'd like to leave you with her video.
Good morning, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen. It is a great joy to provide some remarks and share some thoughts from my experience while working as Assistant Secretary General for Humanitarian Affairs of the United Nations. I consider myself a humanitarian and want to commend the organizers of the conference for selecting as topic for this final session, Nourishing the Human in Humanitarianism. Human progress is hard-won and fragile. The United Nations estimate that 235 million people on the globe need humanitarian assistance and protection this year. And this number is dramatically increasing, with more than 80 million people forcibly displaced at present. Behind these numbers are individuals. The causes of the needs are conflict, natural disasters, and due to climate change, drought, and at the same time floods that destroy land and harvests. The consequences are displacement, hunger, poverty, human suffering. The international community, the United Nations and its partners aim to raise the necessary financial resources, coordinate and provide humanitarian assistance to meet the needs of millions of people. What are the human needs and how are they being met? When needs are assessed by the United Nations and partners on the ground, The focus is on life-saving assistance such as food, water, sanitation, shelter. However, there is more needed to nourish the human soul and spirit. One of the 4 humanitarian principles on the basis of which humanitarian assistance is provided and which are universally recognized is humanity. The 4 humanitarian principles are humanity, neutrality, impartiality, and independence. Let's take a closer look at humanity and impartiality. How is the principle of humanity defined? The purpose of humanitarian action is to protect life and health and ensure respect for human beings wherever human suffering is found. The principle of impartiality means that humanitarian action must be carried out on the basis of need alone, giving priority to the most vulnerable people and making no distinction on the basis of nationality, gender, race, religious beliefs, class, or political opinions. It is most important to make people central and include the affected communities in decision-making and being accountable to them. To be with the people, listen and work with the affected population to lift them out of dire need and provide what they need physically, but also ensure respect for each individual. When tasked with coordinating humanitarian assistance worldwide, I was faced with many crises that needed attention and millions of people impacted. All had one thing in common: huge human need. The humanitarian crisis in Yemen remains the worst in the world. An estimated 80% of the entire population, 25 million people, are in need of humanitarian assistance. Poverty is increasing globally. It is hardly imaginable that in the 21st century, people starve and have no food to eat. The consequences for children are particularly dire because it affects their physical and mental development. A hungry child cannot learn. A healthy person can contribute to their community and society. Responding to humanitarian challenges, humanitarian workers have prevented the worst outcomes, displaying courage, commitment, and compassion. United Nations agencies, local and international non-governmental organizations, local partners on the ground, and individuals from the affected communities themselves have worked tirelessly, hand in hand, and are continuing to do so. I would like to share a few experiences I had and what I learned by being and engaging with people in humanitarian crisis situations. I was sitting on the dusty ground in an African country with men, women, and children affected by drought who were displaced, listening to their stories. They had lost their homes and livelihoods. They shared their aspirations, their innovative ideas with me to find solutions. In front of their makeshift shelters, Basma, a 20-year-old mother of 6, had planted seeds to grow millet, a sign of hope. 2 boys flew a kite made from the scraps of a garbage bag. I was impressed and humbled by their efforts, their resourcefulness, their resolve. In another place, I met with women and children who had seen and experienced incredible violence inflicted during conflict and who were traumatized. They shared with me their hope that perpetrators are held accountable for gender-based violence and that efforts focus on prevention in the future. I believe that no society can heal if sexual violence against women is not addressed. And I will never forget when Assam took my hands and wanted a selfie with me. The entire group of women was laughing and joyful and started singing and dancing. I have seen their dignity in their eyes, astounding resilience and hope. Dignity is inherent in each person, child, man, woman. Dignity is an inalienable right. I talked to women inside Syria on a WhatsApp call. I could hear the bomb shelling. They were desperate. They were aware of the United Nations Security Council meeting that week and asked me to convey their message. Stop the violence. Find political solutions. We want peace, and then we can rebuild our lives. At the end, Aisha said to me, "Do not forget us." I was touched with compassion for these amazing women who are enduring so much, and they don't give up. I amplified their voices and conveyed their asks to the Security Council of the United Nations in New York at its next session. It keeps their hopes high that the international community cares about them. It is indeed a massive, complex, and expensive humanitarian operation in Syria. People are longing for this war to end. This is the human in a humanitarian situation. How can we nourish the human in humanitarianism? What I learned and what is shining through in the examples I shared with you today is the following. First, respect and value each individual, no matter their status, ethnicity, or color. Second, listen with deep interest and compassion and learn. And third, acknowledge the dignity of each individual. Thank you for listening, and I hope I could provide some ideas for your discussion.
Thank you very much, Her Excellency, Mrs. Ursula Müller. I think she made remarkable points that we need to look closer at the conflict, understand and get bonded, and then answer what is needed and also act accordingly. I would like to introduce you my guests today and then give my comments for this topic, and then I will take it to you. So I'd like to start from you. Would you like to just introduce yourself and then?
Okay. Good morning with all of you. Greetings of peace from Peru. My name is Laura Vargas. I am the Executive Secretary of the Interreligious Council of Peru, and I also the coordinator of the Interreligious Rainforest Initiative.
Thank you very much. Welcome to my board.
Thank you. Greetings from peace from Kenya. My name's Mama Shamsa Abubakar Fadil. I'm the chair of Mombasa Women of Faith Network and the Interreligious Council of Kenya.
Thank you very much, Mama Shamsa. Please introduce yourself.
Thank you. I am Genti Kruya. I'm from Albania. I am here as the Secretary General of Interreligious Council of Albania. And at the same time, I am head of Department of Islamic Studies at Bedr University.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So we all be discussing today how we can nourish the human in humanitarianism. So we will try to identify how religious and diplomatic approaches may increase the human in humanitarianism. We had talks about environment and peace and security, and how to approach conflicts and many more throughout the days that we've been here. Another important key chain of sustainability and an environmental issue that we all should look at is the human rights, also humanitarianism. We won't be complete with approaching issues if we don't prioritize humanitarianism, if we don't invest in it. Governments and leaders should bring their attentions in it. For 50 years, Religions for Peace has responded to global challenges by coordinating and supporting multi-religious efforts in building positive peace. This includes supporting peacemaking efforts, environmental support, as well health, education, women, and youth leadership. Now, to overcome this global pandemic, Religions for Peace is drawing from 5 decades of experience, trust, and engagement to fully equip and mobilize its regional and national networks, providing seed grants for concrete action on COVID-19 pandemic, prevention, and response. To support and cultivate humanitarian interfaith action, Religions for Peace established the Multi-Religious Humanitarian Fund in the beginning of 2020. The fund supports and encourages diverse religious communities to work together in their frontline efforts to respond to humanitarian crises. The aim is to ensure quick access to funds during humanitarian crises, specifically COVID-19, for multi-religious response. This fund has provided 22 grants for projects across globally. Majority of these projects are focused on COVID situation. The fund is a vital example of interfaith action. Now, I would like to start with Honorary Laura Vargas, and I would like to receive her comments on this.
Okay. Well, I would like to open this. Okay.
Can I proceed?
Yeah. I would like to share a precious experience that we are living at the moment in Peru with a small fund that we have received to attend one of the most important humanitarian crises that we are going through in our country. And this is the crisis of, this is the crisis of migration. Peru was never a country that received migrants. We were like just a corridor where they went through Peru to go to other places, Brazil and maybe Chile could be the places that are the most preferable for migrants. But in this case, we have more than 1 million people coming to stay in our country from Venezuela. For us, that was really an incredible responsibility, because the people who were coming, some of them were walking through Colombia, walking through Ecuador, just to come to Peru. And they were just running from the conditions in which they were living in their own country, that they were very, very sad, no? Then we say this is a precious experience that we have with the Venezuelan migration, no? We have more than 1 million of people that they have fled from hunger and oppression, and they are looking for opportunities for themselves and their families. And they have faced so many abuses. And we created to attend this need, this urgent need, what we call the Interreligious Council for Refugees and Migrants. For this work, we have received the help of United Nations High Commission for Refugees and also of the International Organization for Migration, no? And also the support of all the religious communities that are organized in our Interreligious Council, no? And I think that the key word is that we have multiplied the amount of money in an incredible way, because solidarity is so powerful. really is something that really takes a lot of you, no? This fund was multiplied, and now we are not only in Lima, that's the capital city of Peru, but we are in 6 other regions of the country where there's a big population of migrants, but also we have 28 communities that are attending migrants. We did, and this is very important, no? Very important campaigns to obtain more help. Like this fund that we received was like a seed, no? And with this seed, we start doing some campaigns that were very touching. For example, we did a campaign, Heroes of the Quarantine, no? To make people alert that because the help from the Peruvian government was just for Peruvians. And we were just saying it's not possible. It should be for everybody who really needs help. But the truth is that they said we don't have enough, and then we have to prioritize Peruvians. No? Then the Venezuelans really had nothing. But with our campaign of Heroes of the Quarantine, we multiply the money, and we can attend really more than 2,000 families in the country. And for us, this is just something very, very important, no? Another campaign that we made was very touching too. Give us our daily bread. You know, we are a Christian tradition. The Christian tradition is the largest in our country. And then the idea of the Our Father, no? Give us this day our bread, no? Is for people, it's very touching. Then we made this campaign of give us our daily bread. And that was also a campaign that really provoked a lot of solidarity. In this moment, we are part of a round table with the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, no? And we are trying to work together with other groups so that we can see how we can obtain more help to continue helping this population, no? We have, and I think that the result of all of this work, we have a solidarity network that has been generated, no? And this is very important, because solidarity is a basic principle of relation. If we don't relate by solidarity, there's no way we can see the other as a unique person, as a human person that shares our own humanity. I think that's what I really wanted to say. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Honorary Mrs. Laura Vargas. Those were very important and remarkable points that you mentioned. I'd like to continue with Mama Shamsa.
Yeah, thank you very much, Eda. And I come from Mombasa Women of Faith Interfaith Network. With our network, we do a lot of things. We visit orphanages, we go to hospitals, we plant trees, we sometimes collect food and give to the less fortunate. We reach out for one another within our network. Our network consists of 11 religious institutions, different religious institutions. In times of deaths and weddings, we do small contributions, we celebrate together, we cry together, we console each other in the network. Our network was one of the beneficiaries of the FEED grant from Religions for Peace, and it came timely because it came during the pandemic times. As the chair of the network, I was privileged to be elected as one of the committee responsible for COVID-19 response team. When I went for the first meeting, I realized there were no religious leaders. And I raised my hand to the governor and told the governor that as much as we want to fight this pandemic, we cannot do it if the religious leaders are not here. The religious leaders have a mouth, the religious leaders have a voice, the community trusts the religious leaders. And actually, the first 2 weeks, it failed. People did not believe that COVID-19 existed. People refused to wear masks. People refused to sanitize. In our country, we normally hug one another. That is a norm. And now people are being told that you only have to instead of shaking your hands, you go on shaking your legs. You keep 1.5 meters apart. People refused. But when the religious leaders were brought on board, people started accepting the different type of life, our lifestyle. When the seed grant came, being in the COVID team, I requested the governor that we have to do a sensitization and awareness campaign, because in my country there are so many people who are not privileged to be in the internet. They don't have TVs, there's no electricity. But with the sensitization campaign, we can have a vehicle and with the loudspeakers going round. The seed grant really helped us with that. We came up with an initiative called Jali Initiative under Interreligious Council of Kenya. Jali means care. I care for you. And we distributed masks, we distributed sanitizers. What we did is, in my country, people live below the poverty line. They could not afford the masks. And we did not want to give them the reusable mask, because if you give them one, they'll not be able to use it again. And then we improvised the cloth mask. And this brought business opportunities within our network, because it is our women who sewed the mask, and we labeled them Mombasa Women, from Mombasa Women of Interfaith and the Interreligious Council of Kenya, and we distributed 150,000 masks. With the Jali initiative, we also gave food contributions to the slums. We have a lot of slums in our areas, and it is not only in my country. I think there were 10 more counties in Isiolo, in Baringo, where the same initiative took place. And I can assure Religions for Peace, the seed granted was used to the maximum. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mama Shamsa. It's really important to, yes, you receive help, but it's really important to have you use it and multiply it as well, and produce some things differently in order to help wherever the support is needed. Thank you so much for your remarks. Now I'd like to go virtually, and because Honorary Miss Jacqueline Malari, she's been waiting very patiently there. I wanted to start with, from Lindau, receive some perspectives, and then introduce you and receive your perspectives. So what we've heard so far, I would like to include you now to comment on and also bring in your remarks. So Honorary Ms. Jacqueline Malari, she is a chairperson, Religions for Peace Philippines Youth Committee, and she is also deputy team leader, again, Religions for Peace Youth Media Team. Welcome, Jacqueline.
Thank you, Eda. And I just want to say that I'm really honored to be part of this conversation. With regards to the Multi-Religious Humanitarian Fund, we were also one of the local IRCs that were granted it. And I think being granted this fund really came with a big responsibility, because we had to think, how can we use these funds wisely and equitably? During that time, this was early last year, during that time, our country was just experiencing the first ever community quarantine, or the lockdown, and it caused many establishments to close and businesses to close as well. The primary things that we wanted to do using that fund was first to educate, second, to provide emergency response, and third, of course, to value our spirituality. So with education, the Religious for Peace Philippines Youth Committee did an online series called COVID Online Series, wherein we spread information online about what COVID-19 is, what can we do, the proper hand washing techniques. We had publication materials debunking the myths surrounding the COVID-19, because during that time, little is known about it yet. And there are many conspiracies going around which are not helping. And we wanted to address that. So we also had to, the second one will be the emergency response. So the team of young people here in the Philippines, what they wanted to do was to provide help to those who are in need. The title of our response was to get there, reaching out to the unheard. First, we thought, who are deserving, or who should we give these resources to? We thought of the frontline healthcare workers, but then we realized in the Philippines there are already a lot of support being given to them. So we said that maybe there are these sectors of people that are also doing a lot during this time but aren't always being heard of. So what the youth committee, the Filipino Youth Committee, did here was to reach out to garbage collectors, informal settlers, displaced contractual workers, and fire victims, and the indigenous community. Those were, the team decided that these are the people whom we can help, because these are the people that are not getting enough notice or attention from the government and from the other non-governmental organizations that are helping out. So in order to provide emergency response, we, coming from the grant that was given to us, we took food packages and sanitation packages, and we gave these publication materials that I discussed earlier, and we give this to almost or more than 400 families. So I know that probably this kind of response, if we come to think about it, it's a temporizing procedure. It's temporary. It just lasts. Maybe the food packages that we gave lasted for a week at least for each of these 400 families. But it's what was necessary during that time, because during that time, the Filipino people are having a hard time because of the lockdown, because they have lost their source of income, and what they need is to survive. That's the primary thing that they need, that the Filipino people need. And the Religious for Peace Youth Committee addressed that. Lastly, for spirituality. We wanted to make sure that this fund stays true to its name, multi-religious. So we partnered to different small-scale churches, Christian, Catholic churches, mosques, masjids, Hindu and Buddhist temples as well. And partnering with them, we give them sanitation packages in preparation for them to open up these worship places as well, because we knew the importance of spirituality for every Filipinos. When the pandemic happened, the churches and the temples and the mosques also closed, and it posed a challenge to the Filipino youth, or every Filipino, regardless of the generation. So we give sanitation packages to these people, and actually that was one of the good things that happened, is that when we partnered with these different organizations or religious organizations, it opened doors for us to find a common ground, because it helped us to know each other. It gave them visibility about what Religions for Peace is doing, but we also learned about what they are doing in their communities as well. So because of these partnerships, sometimes when we had other events, we also tapped on these people, on these organizations, which were always willing to partner and collaborate with us. So I think for the multi-religious humanitarian fund, it was really, really important that the Religions for Peace pooled their resources to give to offer for COVID-19 response, because this is the most urgent humanitarian crisis that we're facing right now. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Jacqueline Malari. Thank you very much for your input. As a young person, it's great to hear how also you've been doing with your grant. You mentioned education, you mentioned safe and security, you mentioned also spirituality, which comes together with well-being. These are very important points that we need to prioritize to deal with COVID-19 pandemic, which is still ongoing, unfortunately. We try to cover, as women power here, our responses our collective response to the COVID-19 pandemic and how the grant was being used. I would like to now give the floor to Dr. Genti Kruja, who is the Secretary General, Religions for Peace, Albania. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Eda. Dear panelists, dear representative of Religions for Peace from all the world, it is a pleasure for me to communicate and share with you some experience from Albania. For more than 2 years, Religions for Peace has undertaken major international actions promoting interfaith dialogue of different religions and cultures. In these 2 years, though in difficult situations, due to the pandemic, has recognized its structure and is encouraging all interreligious councils in the world for a strong activation and peace and dialogue. One of the concrete examples is the organization of Religions for Peace Europe. During my speech, you can watch a short video. Please, dear team, can you play it?
Can we play it? Yes.
Okay, thank you. You know, Albania is a small country in Europe, but a researcher of history and dialogue emphasize it as a model of interfaith coexistence for centuries. Albania, a country where the East and West are crossroads, Muslims and Christians are coexisting since hundreds of years. There exists an interfaith cooperation among religious institutions, among universities founded by religious communities, the three theologies, Islamic, Orthodox, and Catholic. We have organized several national and international conferences, workshops, and 10 symposiums in last years on interfaith dialogue, which included both students and professors of these three institutions in order to foster and maintain a better understanding and cooperation between future young religious leaders. Eventually, it's very important to educate the future religious leaders based on human and universal values. For this reason, we established at Bedr University a Master on Religious Studies in 3 profiles: interfaith dialogue, religious education, and religious leadership, where can study students of all religions. Another good model is the Interreligious Council of Albania that was established in 2007 with the support of Religions for Peace. The 5 religious communities, Muslims, Orthodox, Catholics, Protestant, and Bektashi, a Sufi Muslim order, although different in percentage of population, they are equally represented in the council structures such as Board of the Presidency, Executive Board, Department of Women, and Department of Youth. Interreligious Council of Albania in 2018 was awarded Sergio de Mello International Peace Prize in Poland, and this year the President of the Republic decorated Interreligious Council of Albania with a high medal honor of the nation. Last year, the European Council of Religious Leaders has collaborated with Religions for Peace to distribute funds to countries in Europe, and the first project they are supporting was Interreligious Council of Albania and Bosnia. This activity relates to the COVID-19 response, where Christian, Muslim, youth, and women from the departments of council helped around 200 families of different religions in need with food packages. It's not important how much package we help. It is important to be a model for other institutions, official institutions, and other NGOs. It is amazing to see a Muslim teacher with a nun a Muslim imam with a Christian priest holding 8 boxes together. We are doing our best in harmony with the spirit of this joint commitment of religious communities in order to realize our mission. I thank Religions for Peace for supporting us on becoming active for promoting interfaith dialogue, and I'm very happy to be together with you in this very important conference. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Gente Korea. We are very happy of having you here today with us and also hearing about your remarkable points. Now I would like to take this opportunity and ask to our audience if you'd like to contribute or comment on anything or ask questions to our speakers here, but also virtually. Yes, please, Huma, can I take you, please? Also, please wear your mask on. Thank you.
When I speak, I'll take it off. Yeah. Thank you. That was very interesting. And yes, definitely. I think all the countries, all of us are doing very good work in such pandemic, in such a situation where, which is unprecedented. The situation we are facing has never been faced in the world before. And all of you are doing very good work who have had the opportunity of speaking, and many of us who are sitting here and are contributing in our own way. But at the same time, we are limited by our resources, especially countries like Pakistan and Nepal, Cambodia. A lot of countries in the Asian sector are limited by funds. And when, for example, in Pakistan, with USAID, we did receive a lot of vaccines from China. We received masks and vaccines, and even from Europe. So all the help which we can get, the humanitarian assistance in such times where human rights is very important, because the right of a human being to live is being compromised here, because the life itself is being threatened. So we welcome all assistance like we did, and where we combine in all the actors. We contributed ourselves as well as being Muslims when we had, because we take out the zakat, and that is to be used for humanitarian assistance as well. But at the same time, all kinds of assistance which was ventured by anybody, little or small. I liked your comment, the size does not matter, the thought matters, and we welcome little or any assistance as well. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Huma. Yes, well, we call it interfaith action. Every little help is very important, and we call also governments and other faith leaders to contribute, even if it's little. Now I'd like to ask questions to, if we don't have any other comments or questions here. Yes, please.
Good morning. Thank you very much for your presentations this morning. I have a question, and really it's about humanitarianism and the future and future generations. One of the things surely we have now is responsibilities for future generations, generations not yet to be. How are we going to put this into our humanitarian system so that we can be stewards for the future? Because ours is the first generation which really clearly has a responsibility now to future generations, and yet this is not being engaged in humanitarianism. Humanitarianism is always about short-term emergency stopgap measures so that we can be perceived as doing something, as acting. But we don't think about, well, we often think about what are called quick wins and quick impact. But what are we going to be doing about long-term resilience? Thank you.
Thank you very much. It is a very good question. Would you like to comment on this one?
Yes. I think that the question is very good. And one of the most important crises of today is the climate crisis, and also the loss of biodiversity and the pandemic. Because we usually don't think that the pandemic is a zoonotic problem, because the pandemic that we're living and is causing so much suffering in our world comes because we have destroyed the habitats of wild animals. And they don't have where to be. They jump to the humans. And we humans don't have the resources in our body to repel that. And then we are sick. If we keep destroying nature, as we are doing now, we're going to have more pandemics. This is not going to be the last one. And this last one has so many waves. We are now in the third wave, and we don't know when it's going to finish. No, we don't know really. But we have to be conscious that in nature everything is interrelated. You cannot destroy part of nature without thinking that there are going to be consequences for the future and for the future of all of humanity. And I think that we have to work very hard on that, to make people aware that all life should be respected. Not only human life, that is fundamental, but we have to respect animal life. We have to respect the life of plants, of the rivers. We are part of nature. No? We are made of the elements of nature. If we destroy nature, we are destroying ourselves. And in that sense, what we're doing also with this interreligious rainforest initiative is a precious opportunity to make people aware that we have to protect our forests, we have to protect the ecosystems, because life depends on that. I think I wanted to say that. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for your contribution. It is very true. We are not alone on this planet Earth. We are sharing it with our friends, animals, and also plants and trees, and we need to take care of them as well. I think Jacqueline wants to add on. So we're going to go virtual now. Yes, please, Jacqueline.
Yeah. Thank you. I think the previous question, it was asking for sustainability. And I also would very much love if many of the projects we're doing right now are sustainable. But speaking as a young person, I have to admit that right now it is kind of difficult for us to make projects that are more sustainable, that are long-term, because our resources, our capabilities, our influence are limited. And that's why I think this is the time where we have to ask the religious actors, those who are, on the higher level of the hierarchy, to be involved. The religious actors, they always tell us, the youth, to speak up, to do something. But right now, I think it's time for us, the youth, to humbly and respectfully ask the senior religious leaders and religious actors to speak up as well. We always hear that religion and politics don't go together. Maybe that's true in many aspects of the case, but it does not necessarily mean that religious actors or religious leaders cannot take a political stand. Right now, we agree, we all know that every little thing counts. But in this situation that we are in a pandemic. The rise in humanitarian issues and problems is so abrupt that it overwhelmed our individual capacities to, help and solve the problems. So what we need right now are large-scale solutions. And in order to achieve this, we have to tap on the policymakers. I said earlier that I think it's time right now for religious actors to take a political stand, to partners with policymakers, to do something from above, to guide the processes, to guide our path down here in the grassroots levels. We, the youth, are very willing and we want to engage and be involved. If you have noticed in the past how many days, when a young person is speaking, there's always something with the way they spoke. the tone of their voice, the look in their eyes, and the sharpness of their words, it doesn't reflect confrontation, it reflects eagerness. It's like an itch to do something more, to speak more. I think we want to do that, but we also need the support of the religious leaders and the religious actors. So right now, what I'm trying to say is that there may be some things that some religious actors are, they shy away from some certain issues because it might be controversial or something like that. But I think now is not the time to be neutral anymore. We have to make a stand. I think for us to be able to achieve a more sustainable project, a more sustainable action, we need to make a stand on something that we all believe in, on the common goals that we have to do. We assure you that the youth will support you for as long as we, have the same intentions and goals. So, yeah, I think I guess what I'm really just saying here is that the youth are willing to help, but we also need help from the religious actors. Please try to, do something from the higher level to guide us, to guide the things that we do here from the grassroots levels. The youth are your companions. We will stand by you in your decisions. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Rockley. And now I would like to come back
Yeah.
here and...
Yeah, thank you. As long as we accept religion as the backbone of cultural identity, social engagement, and human development, we have secured the future of humanitarianism, because we have to put in practice the holy teachings. The practice should start from home. Are we teaching our children moral values? Are we teaching our children respect? Are we teaching our children how to forgive? Are we teaching our children to donate? Are we teaching our children to lend a helping hand? We will definitely nourish the humanitarianism in the human. We can be human beings, but some of us are not human. You cannot teach love, but you teach hate. We, as parents, have failed our children terribly. We have taught our children to be self-centered. We only think about our children. I don't think about my neighbor's child. We should be able to break that barrier in order to secure the future of humanitarianism. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mama Shamsa. We are all together in this, aren't we?
Yeah,
I'd like to also ask you, Dr. Ganti,
Yes,
would you like
thank you. I talk in my speech about education system of religious communities. You know, Albania for 50 years was in a communist regime, no religion, and this regime destroyed everything, churches and mosques, and killed priests and imams. But the first work of communist regime is to close schools of religious communities, because education is very important. These schools, not only religious schools. In these schools you learn every science and some religious lesson. And after communism time, first invest of religious communities was to reopen these schools and to educate young generation. Before 4 months of pandemic time, in Albania there was an earthquake, and a lot of people lost their homes, and maybe 100 families began to live in mosques and in churches. And the young generation of these schools, of these universities, help them to for any package in need families. And after this time, we passed the COVID pandemic time, and again, young generation from these schools is the first were the first groups that help families in need. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We heard many thoughtful points, also the most importantly, actions that are taken during COVID-19 and also actions that are ready there for another crisis. I would like to remind everyone here also on their screens, the COVID pandemic is still something ongoing. We should be prepared for the future crises. We hope that there won't be any more. We are kind of prepared for this one, and at least we know how to deal with this crisis. But yeah, we wish to not have any bigger ones. We know that even with small grants, we can do big actions. We can do different practices which will help vulnerable groups, young people, children, women, animals, also the planet Earth, with environmental good practices, from planting trees to providing different resources which are eco-friendly or more sustainable. Governments and leaders also should bring their attentions in, so we can call it actions with no limits, and also actions which would maintain humanitarianism. I just checked our time. We are doing great. We have 4 minutes to complete this session. I would like to take this advantage to thank all my guests today who joined me also virtually. We had remarkable points, I guess, and I just want to give you the floor if you'd like to complete this session with your good thoughts. And I'd like to start with Jacqueline, who joined us virtually. Would you like to add on any closing remarks?
Yeah, thank you. I think to close this, I just want to emphasize that please involve the youth. Earlier this week, we had a conversation between Dr. Ren Sergao and Dr. Vinu Aram. And in this conversation, we discovered that right now, the problem isn't about having a seat on the table anymore. It's actually being listened to. So I hope that in these tables, in the many tables that we are gonna share now and in the future, I hope you involve the youth. That's it, I think. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jacqueline. Ms. Laura?
I think that the most important thing for today's moment is the care of the other. That's in all religious traditions. In Christianity, we call it the golden rule. Do to your brother what you want them to do to you. If we live under this rule, then we are going to permanently caring for the other, because the other is my own. We have to be reflected in all life of the planet. And then this is a very powerful and important thought, no? The care of the other. And we have to work for a new paradigm where care is at the center, at the core of the paradigm, and not the use of the other, and not power, but caring, protecting, no? And that's fundamental to continue working as religious people too. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, I would like to say this. Globalization and the changing nature of conflict has opened opportunities for our religious leaders to be involved in promoting peace, friendly relations, negotiations, dialogue, humanitarianism. The religious dimension in international relations should be emphasized and recognized. There is a quote from Harold Nicholson. He is an English diplomat from Persia. He says, "It is neither an invention nor pastime of some political system, but is an essential element in any reasonable relation between man and man and nations and nations. Let's break the barriers, and Religion for Peace can do it. It has broken the barriers. We are here today globally because of Religion of Peace. Let's take this platform everywhere across the world. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mama Shama. And Dr. Genti?
Yes, first word of Quran is Iqra, read. And if we can read, we can choose many problems in the world now, because many people, many young people now cannot go to school, not only in the pandemic time, but in every time. Education is key of choosing of many problems, and the role of youth and the role of women is very important in these days. God loves dialogue, like to be together, and let's be together. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Genti, and thank you very much to our audience, also my speakers, also the keynote speakers, and my virtual speakers and my virtual audience who joined us today. It's an honor for me and also a valuable, good experience and memories to having run this session, and also with the same honor I would like to conclude and would like to invite you outside to the coffee break. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.